everyone, and thank you for listening. My name is Steve Capel. I'm a vice chair at UNCFACT and project lead for the United Nations Transparency Protocol. I'm going to describe that protocol and its value propositions in this presentation. Essentially, UNTP is an anti-greenwashing protocol. The situation we face is that greenwashing is rampant and getting worse. Several surveys have been completed that indicate that something like a little over 50% of all environmental claims about products and facilities are either fraudulent or misleading. That's a serious problem, and it has an impact, which is to devalue claims about sustainable products and push us down a pathway which I might call a race to the bottom. If it's easy to fake claims, consumer confidence drops, and low confidence means less or zero price differential. And even genuine businesses have to fake claims to survive. What we want to do is reverse this trend to a race to the top, where it's hard to fake claims. Consumer confidence in trustworthy data about environmentally sustainable products improves. And that improvement in confidence leads to higher prices. And businesses compete on the quality of claims. And we turn around this trajectory to a race to the top. A number of regulations around the world recognize exactly this, that the more transparency, verifiable transparency that you can put at corporate level through sustainability reporting or at product level through things like digital product passports, then the more confidence you inspire in consumers and drive that behavior change towards more sustainable products. However, transparency at a scale, a global scale, that will have a material impact on sustainability outcomes isn't easy to achieve. There are a whole heap of challenges. For example, a plethora of traceability platforms. Which one do I choose? A lack of business incentives, or at least lack of clarity about what the business incentives are. Insufficient trust in data to satisfy due diligence requirements, needs for commercial confidentiality, unequal digital maturity, slow adoption, and so on and so forth, all kinds of problems. What UNTP aims to do is provide a solution for them. And I'll get into some of how that works in a moment. But in essence, UNTP is a protocol, not a platform. It's a standard, effectively, that will allow actors across borders and across industries that hold islands of data that are necessary to draw that picture of end-to-end transparency from t-shirt to cotton farm or from lithium mine to electric vehicle, all those blue dots on the screen, to join their data together. Leave it where it is, but be able to link it. That means thousands of different systems, platforms, billions of value chains and transactions. Our goal, how we'll know whether we succeeded, is when UNTP digital product passports are issued at a volume of something like 1 million per day. That'll represent a significant 10 to 20% proportion of global trade. And we aim to achieve that by 2030. How to do that? Well, UNTP has 5 pillars. The first and most important one are the data credentials that comprise the UNTP protocol. A digital product passport, providing sustainability information about products. A digital facility record, a similar thing, but this time for factories or farms or facilities. A digital conformity credential, which is a third-party or second-party attestation about the claims regarding products and facilities, therefore adding trust. And finally, a traceability event, which is the thing that allows us to connect supplies through manufacturing processes and traverse back from that finished battery or that t-shirt back to cotton farm or lithium mine. But those credentials alone are not enough. You've got to be able to find them, exchange them at scale. And to do that, UNTP has a basic principle that is, if you've got an identifier of a thing, whether it's a product or an item, a serialized item, or a farm or a facility, if you've got an identifier of a thing, then you should be able to find verifiable data about the thing. So right at the heart of UNTP scalability is an identity resolver. The idea that if I've got an idea of a thing, like a barcode on a box, I can find the data I need. I don't need to know who to ask. There's just a simple protocol to find it. Furthermore, that when I find it, it's equally accessible by machines or humans. And that's because we can't depend on a value chain having machine automation end to end on day one. The next thing that UNTP needs to be able to address is confidence in that data. Has it been tampered with? Who really issued it? And if there is sensitive data, can it be adequately protected? So that there are components of UNTP that address that issue of securing the data. Another aspect of UNTP, and this is perhaps one of the more challenging ones, is understanding and making sense of the data, particularly the sustainability claims in the data. How do I know when I receive a product from one country that claims a certain carbon intensity, for example, based on some regulations in that country or some voluntary standard used by that product, that the claim is equivalent? Are we measuring carbon intensity the same way? Do we have the same boundaries? What is the meaning of this claim, really? How can I trust it? This is an important part and a real challenge for the world to drive more understanding of the meaning of claims and start to drive towards mutual recognition and equivalence so that we don't drive costs up by, for example, having to do 10 audits for 10 different export countries against 10 different but very similar standards. So that's the sustainability vocabulary catalog part of UNTP. And finally, but not least, if there isn't commercial value in this, because UNTP is a voluntary standard, not regulatory mandated, then nobody's going to take it up. So UNTP also provides some business case templates for different actors, buyers, suppliers, certifiers, software vendors, and so on, in the ecosystem, and a framework for engaging an entire community, typically a particular geography and/or industry sector, and a way to assess ongoing value. So that collection, those 5 pillars, constitute UNTP and provide the toolkit necessary to implement transparency at a global scale. When it works, different actors in the value chain use their own systems or their preferred software to issue and receive and discover sustainability data upstream and downstream. Each do their own thing, but because common identifiers are used, it's possible to trace a pathway, as shown in this diagram, from car manufacturer back to lithium or copper mine. A few other things about UNTP. There are, as many will know, a multitude of initiatives around the world, some regulatory, some voluntary. So it's a reasonable question to say, how does UNTP fit with all these? So we'll talk about that briefly now. Let's look at a typical example. The European Digital Product Passport applies at market entry. At a point at which a product enters the European market, in future, it will need to be accompanied by a European standards compliant digital product passport. But many products that enter the European market start their life in some other economy. So it's equally important to get high confidence sustainability data about the upstream value chain. Otherwise, economic operators in a governed market like the European Union won't have the necessary confidence and substantiation to make the claims that they need to make in their regulated passport. So UNTP can act as an upstream high integrity data feedstock to inform regulatory passports. Another key feature about UNTP is that it's deliberately industry neutral. And that's important because there are a whole number of silos of industry activity around creating digital sustainability information, but every value chain must cross multiple industry boundaries, whether it's from farming to vehicles, the leather on cows ending up as a seat in your car, or mining to batteries, or cotton farming to t-shirts. These are quite significant industry boundaries that get crossed. And if we're going to be able to follow a value chain back to primary production, it's important that there's a common core that's interoperable. Furthermore, it's impossible or very difficult to try to satisfy the needs of every industry sector everywhere in the world. So what UNTP really tries to do is say, here is a common core toolkit that has all the common elements that every industry needs and every geography needs. And here's a framework for you to add your industry-specific or geography-specific extensions in such a way that the credentials you issue will still be interoperable with other economies and other industries. This is a really key feature of UNTP. So where are we in our journey with UNTP? We're today working through the alpha phase. The UNTP is not yet a finalized set of specifications. We expect to achieve that early next calendar year. We have published 0.5 version and are encouraging a number of implementers to build and test to that version. And so far we have a decent number of commitments, a few dozen, to implement UNTP and test interoperability. And we also have a number of industry sectors, some of which are actively in progress, such as agriculture in Australia, critical raw materials, UNEC level, and some looming, construction, electrical, electronic, and textiles. By combining this pilot work with early test versions of UNTP, we'll achieve a very high confidence that the version 1.0 release early next year will be stable, will be workable, and will bring value. So we encourage everyone that's listening to this to have a look at the website. There's a link there, or you can just Google UNTP. And perhaps more importantly, if you are a registry operator or a regulator or a buyer or supplier in the value chain, or a software provider of software systems that support traceability and transparency in supply chains, or even a core ERP system, please have a look, understand the protocol, join the conversation, and register your intent to implement UNTP and help us take the journey, the race to the top, and improve the quality, integrity, and trustworthiness of sustainability data in international value chains. Thank you for listening.